When you think about the software that basically runs our world, have you ever wondered how it all gets built? Well, today, we're going to unpack the wild, almost accidental story of a programming language that started with an idea for smart appliances and somehow ended up running a massive chunk of our digital lives. Let's dive in.
So, just to kick things off, think about this for a second. You've got a robot exploring another planet, a video game that has completely defined a generation, and the operating system that's on pretty much every single Android phone. What in the world could possibly connect those things?
The answer, and this is pretty wild, is Java. Yeah, from the gigantic servers that power huge corporations, all the way down to the phone in your pocket, Java is, and I mean this literally, everywhere. It's one of the most influential technologies of the last 30 years, but its journey to the top was anything but a straight line.
To really get how we got here, we have to go back, way back, to the early 90s, to this kind of secret team at Sun Microsystems called the Green Project. And their goal? It had nothing to do with the internet. Nope. They were trying to build the next big thing in smart consumer electronics. Interactive TVs and, yes, even smart toasters.
Java's creator, James Gosling, he just put it perfectly. He took one look at the whole consumer electronics world and just saw chaos. Every single device had a different processor, a different system. In his own words, they were just repeating the mistakes that the computer industry had gone through decades before. Everyone was reinventing the wheel, and honestly, they were doing a pretty bad job of it.
So the solution his team cooked up was absolutely revolutionary: platform independence. They created a language where you could write your code one single time, and it would just work, anywhere, on any chip. This little mantra, write once, run anywhere, became Java's superpower.
Okay, but here's the twist in the story. The Green Project, it was a total commercial failure. The consumer electronics companies, they just weren't interested. The project was on the verge of getting completely shut down. And then the team had this incredible aha moment. They realized their technology was perfect for something else entirely, the brand new, rapidly exploding World Wide Web. See, the team had been pitching their idea to these huge cable and phone companies. These giant closed-off systems where everything was controlled from the top down. But the internet, oh, that was the Wild West. It was open, it was chaotic, and it was bubbling up from the bottom. We're talking about two completely different universes.
And Gosling's realization here, it was a total game changer. He saw that it was, and I'm quoting him, way more likely that the internet was going to grow than that these companies would become friendly. So they were betting on openness over control. And boy, did they pivot. They pivoted hard.
You have to remember, in the early 90s, the web was static. It was just text and images. Kind of boring, right? There was no way to create these rich, dynamic experiences that we just take for granted today. Well, Java was about to change all of that and become a key weapon in the battle for the future of the web, the infamous browser wars.
Their big solution was something they called Java Applets. It was a simple idea, but it was genius. A small, secure Java program could be dropped right into a web page. Your browser would download it, and it would run right there on your machine. All of a sudden, for the very first time, websites could have animations and games and interactive tools. The web came alive. And the impact was just explosive. By 1996, in about a year, over 100 companies had licensed Java's technology. Now, this wasn't just about making cool animations. This was a strategic power play. They were all siding with Sun against Microsoft in this high-stakes battle to define what the web would become. Okay, so that's the incredible history. But what actually is Java? Like, what makes it tick? To really understand why it's been around for so long, we need to pop the hood and take a quick look at its official rulebook, the Java Language Specification.
All right, here it is, the classic Hello World program. Now, don't worry about all the syntax here. The most important thing to see is that very first word, class. Everything, and I mean everything in Java, lives inside one of these things.
So that class you just saw, that's the core organizing principle of the whole language. The best way to think of it is like a blueprint. You could define a blueprint for a car or maybe a user, and then you can create as many individual copies or objects from that blueprint as you need. It was a super powerful way to manage the growing complexity of software. And this right here, gets us right back to that write once, run anywhere promise. To guarantee a program runs exactly the same on every single machine, the Java rulebook strictly defines its most basic building blocks.
An int is always 32 bits, with this exact range of values. A byte is always 8 bits. There's zero ambiguity, which means no nasty surprises when you run your code on a different computer.
So, this obsessive focus on stability and platform independence, that's exactly why Java's legacy has been so powerful. The principles they laid down for smart toasters back in the 90s ended up shaping the technology that we still rely on every single day.
And get this, for a piece of that legacy, it's pretty mind-blowing. Years before the iPhone even existed, the Japanese telecom giant NTT Docomo built this revolutionary mobile platform called iMode, and it was all powered by Java. And as Gosling points out, they created an app store with a revenue model that looked almost identical to what Apple would later make famous.
And that brings us right up to today, because Java isn't just some piece of history, it is a modern workhorse. It powers the back-end systems for countless companies. It's a cornerstone of big data processing, and of course, it's the official language for building native Android apps. Its reach is still just immense.
When you step back, Java's story isn't one of some grand design. It became the king of code because of a failed project, a brilliant pivot, and a fanatical devotion to stability. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question, right? In our constantly changing tech world, what's the next tool that's being built for toasters that might accidentally end up running our future?